I've got to clean the carriers for my emotional support birds so they can go outside. While I'm doing that, I want to talk with you about what a real superpower is.
Hi there. I'm an ex-military physician and known troublemaker who now spends most of my year bringing meds to Guarani people in South America, where I live like an RPG character, completing quests that have ranged from hiding an abused kid in my house from a machete-wielding maniac to quietly documenting jungle medicinal plants. I've swum with sharks, jumped into frigid mountain waterfalls, pissed off high-ranking officials, and trained parrots to save my life. I'm on my flawed journey to becoming, and this channel is for people who would actually like to become real-life superheroes.
You can't see me. Look at me, I'm over there. I think this is a good way that we're going to be able to talk while I do things, because it's not working, you and I. This relationship, this parasocial relationship, is not social enough. Because I recognize that there's a real person over there who might click away at 42 seconds, but you exist, and you're a real person. And I want to actually talk to you. Why am I qualified to tell you what is a real-life superpower? I actually have a degree in wilderness medicine, and I was a military physician. I don't want to do any stolen valor here. I'm not like run through minefields or anything like that, but I've seen some people be pretty incredible and some people fold under pressure. In my work with indigenous people in South America, I've seen people do amazing things, and I've seen, I think, what I would qualify as miracles in some situations. I had to study, specifically a military physician. Your job is to get people to the top level of what they can be, right? You want that person to be the most amazing war fighter. And medicine actually has a lot to do with why certain militaries win and others lose. Actually, one of the reasons that for a while the South was doing better than the North in the Civil War was because when supplies were cut off, the North still had access to very dangerous, bad medicines. Their modern medicine at that time was like giving you mercury for diarrhea, whereas the South, not having access to the modern medicine of that time, was using herbs and stuff like that. I've actually read their herbal book, and some of those treatments are still legitimate treatments. Right, whereas mercury for diarrhea is not a legitimate treatment. You know, in the end, the North had better industrialization. It's not just strategy and other things like that. Bravery obviously make a difference, but the individual capabilities of your soldiers make an enormous difference. So we're trying to optimize that warfighter to become essentially a superhero. And so a lot of those doctors go on to work with like athletes and working at the extremes of human capability a lot of times. But a lot of human feats obviously don't happen when there's a doctor around. So I'm also a historian. Got a degree from the then, I don't know if it's still ranked, but at that time it was the USA Today top ranked history program in the United States. I need to splash you there. The number one superpower probably in all of history is one you've probably seen going around on a thumbnail on YouTube. Delusion. Delusion is like a drug. You should not use too much of any medicine. There's actually a saying that poison is in the dose. So everything is poisonous, even oxygen. The question is how much of it takes to kill you. Delusion, obviously, in certain doses kills people. We need to have a grip on reality as far as the hows, the whats, not so much. I'm going to explain to you what I mean. So in one of the shorts recently, I talked about a guy who invented the radio, who was told over and over again by lay people and scientists of his day that the idea of a person actually speaking long distance like that was impossible, and that he was a crazy person. And I think he was kind of a crazy person, because if I remember correctly, he used to do all kinds of experiments in his house, some of which like blew up his house. And we can call that ambition and hubris and whatever. But it's only hubris if it doesn't work. Otherwise, we call it, wow, that was a great invention. And people might argue, well, in one case, hubris is you were not realistic. That's not true, because what is realistic, you don't really know until you've tried to a limit. Because we don't really know a lot about reality until we've gone through it with the scientific method. We didn't know that flies didn't spontaneously generate on meat until some guy covered up the meat and flies didn't spontaneously generate there, and they learned then how maggots work, right? That was something they had to learn. So their reality at that time, the reality they were perceiving, was the wrong reality. And that's the problem, is what does it mean to be realistic? You might not know. If you want to achieve amazing things, some level of delusion is highly necessary. Also for leadership, very powerful leaders, good and bad, and especially dictators, who I would say have a lot of power, come to power because they're able to control people's perceptions of reality. From a medical standpoint, it is not true that if you just believe you can do something, you can do it. However, believing you can do something certainly does alter your neurochemical makeup. I know a little bit about this because of the study of pain. I have chronic pain all the time. I'm never not in pain. I think in the last 3 years, there have been a handful, maybe less than 6 days total, that I haven't had pain. I mean, like, it's always to the point that if I sit down long enough, I'm going to become really sad. Like, sit down and not thinking about something else, right? Because it's not pleasant. I was hospitalized for this back in 2018 because it made me want to KYS, not be around anymore because I was in pain all the time. I wanted it to end. I felt like if there are people who are advocating for cancer patients to be allowed to end just because they're in pain, why can't I when I'm in pain, right? Well, the answer is because there's still so much you have to give to the world, and because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if something's going to change and you're going to get better. There's reasons why we don't advocate people dying. But I was not happy. I was hospitalized for 30 days, and one of the therapies that I ended up getting my hands on was a pain psychology therapy. Do you want to see what I'm doing?
That's what I'm doing. It's messy.
Okay, you got to see what I'm doing. So, pain psychology, and what it has to do with belief. One of the things that we learned, turns out to be pretty true, is that there are 2 ways you get pain signals. One way is from your peripheral nervous system. That's the way I think most of us are familiar with. I stub my toe sends a signal up to my brain that says, ow, I'm in pain, and then I'm in pain, right? But another way is for me to send a signal from my brain, from my central nervous system down. And that's not like thinking you're in pain. That's like you can actually affect the amount of substance P that's in your spine from your brain. It works like that with histamine too. Histamine is a chemical that causes allergic reactions. Some asthmatics have a lot of it, just like people who have a lot of stomach problems. Well, interestingly enough, or people who are asthmatics also tend to have a lot of anxiety. The asthma isn't all in their head. They're still going to die and not be able to breathe if they don't get to the hospital. But the histamine released from the brain can make it worse, which is why there was an interesting study that found that asthmatics who journaled every day had less asthma attacks, actually decreasing the amount of chemicals in their brain that affected their body. This wasn't, oh, their asthma attacks are all in their head. No, an asthma attack can kill you. It was they're learning to hack their nervous system to deal with something that they don't like. And you can do that also. And with pain, it was the same way. We learned that there's peripheral pain that you probably can't make go away. The radio guy couldn't make it so that I can talk to someone just here with nothing. He had to build a radio. And same kind of thing, maybe I can't make the peripheral pain go away, but I can affect the central pain so that it sends different signals to the peripheral pain, and thereby reducing and controlling it. It's pretty cool what you can do when you learn to hack your nervous system. That is why, scientifically and historically, delusion is probably one of the best superpowers. I'm actually going to change its name and not call it delusion. The willingness to change the question from what to how. When the question is what is possible, is this possible, there will be 50% of the time that the answer will be no. And you're mentally preventing yourself from coming up with solutions because you've already included the no answer in your options. But when the question is how is this possible, then you start coming up with solutions, because then you're going to look realistically at your obstacles, sit down, and work through them. You need to still be realistic. That's the problem with people who are genuinely delusional and it's not advancing them in life. They're unable to see the unrealistic hows. They can't see the obstacles. The realistic person who's using delusion as a superpower instead of a crutch, they can see the obstacles, but they can also see the possibilities. And that's because they've switched the question from is it possible to how is it possible. Hey, you should join me for more of this hero philosophy stuff, and I'll give you some more biological and less cheating superpower answers next time. And because I legitimately don't want this to be a one-sided conversation, tell me what you think. What would be a biological superpower you'd like to know more about? What characters do you want to ask me about, like from superhero movies or whatever, and ask if their stuff could be real? Could we ask how is it real instead of is it real, right? Could we create those things? And if you leave me a comment, you might see in those comments a opportunity to kind of get some secret stuff from me. So, yeah. Have a creator course, not a creator course. And not a course like, oh, you have to buy it and sell it and then we're going to upsell you. No. I have an actual 5-day inspiration course where it's more like a workshop and you sit and you figure out what your superpower is. Like, what are the things about you that you could optimize so that you could change the world? And what about the world needs to be changed? Those are good questions you should answer.
Check out my little charity project at becominghero.byjenfinelli.com to start your origin story today as we turn your pain into the power that can change the world.